Hello, I am back at it again. I am playing Firewatch for as long as I care to play with director's commentary or developer's commentary turned on. I thought it was a cool feature. I played a game, I think The Flame in the Flood, The Fire in the Flood, the other day, and they had a director's commentary feature that you can turn on. I thought that was really neat, and this game is really great, and I want to see what it's like in this game. Behind the scenes. Let's see how they handle it. Here we go. I'm just turning on the stream for myself. Let me turn on desktop audio. We can hear that. I'll turn it up a little bit. And then I'll shut the hell up and I'll play. I think I might just speed run through this first part because I don't think the director's commentary is in this section of the game. This is just your backstory, really depressing. If you've recently broken up with someone or are in strife, I don't recommend playing this game. It'll fuck you up. Voiced by Rich Sommer, who played the, I think, nerdy account guy in Mad Men. Here we go.
Hello there, welcome to the Firewatch audio tour. My name is Rich Sommer. I voiced the character of Henry, the guy that you're currently controlling with those buttons there. And I'll be chatting with you in a little bit. Thanks for checking it out.
I love that it's wrapped around this like audio tour thing like you would get at a national park or some sort of museum. That's really neat. I think I'll go with German Shepherd this time. There's another audio tape. One second, let me check on the stream health real quick. So far, so good. All right, back at it.
Hi, I'm Sean Vanneman. I wrote the bulk of 100% of this game.
Hey, I'm Jake Rodkin. I did a lot of level design, UI design, and worked with everyone on the story for Firewatch.
The game has this weird structure that Chris and I talk about in another tape. This is the first thing I wrote, was this opening of the game that jumps between Henry's life and
really cool.
the trip out to the woods. And I used a little product called Twine to do that, which you can download and use. It's just a very simple choose your own adventure tool. The simplest way to program a video game that one can then share with friends and play.
I think we were worried that the team would sort of perceive Henry as a blank slate, as sort of a generic game player protagonist, and we wanted to make sure, or we wanted to get in everyone's mindset, you're playing as a specific guy with a specific life.
Yeah, there's a reason when you play video games that a lot of your protagonists have amnesia, because it's really difficult when you're driving a character around who knows things about their life, or his or her life, that you, who you ostensibly are that person, don't know. So yeah, we kept trying to write an opening of the game that happened sort of like weeks into Henry's experience, and then quickly realized that it was like, well, why would he not be able to say X? Well, because his relationship with his wife is Y. So, but the player doesn't know that.
Yeah.
And this was the quickest way to get everybody on board, was to just take the thing that I wrote that answered the question, I think, for Jane and you at the beginning, which was like, who is Henry? And I would write these character profiles that were really bad. And then I went, what if I just let you play a thing? And then you can figure out who he is. And we held on to that until we had the idea to put into the game.
It means that when you're playing Firewatch and Henry and Delilah start talking about Henry's wife, you don't have to learn it through his dialogue, because you made the choices that brought him where he is today.
Game's beautiful in its own way. Looks like a national parks postcard. Oops.
Hi, it's Jake again.
Hey, I'm Chris Remo.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Hi there. I was a game designer and the music composer on Firewatch.
Nice.
So you're hearing now the first piece of interactive music that went into Firewatch. The first piece of music that actually...
Responds to what you're doing in the game?
Exactly.
I didn't know
so
that.
This is a piece of music that's divided into technically 6 parts. And what's happening is, as you're playing through this introductory sequence, when you hit certain points in the narrative, it sends a signal to Wise, which is the name of the audio middleware we're using. And then when Wise gets that signal, it waits until the next sort of musically appropriate transition point. And then when it hits that, it smoothly transitions into the next section of music. And so it creates the effect that you're just listening to one big long piece of music that just happens to be timed very nicely
It just
to your
happens.
playthrough.
It just happens to get sadder and sadder at the exact rate that your life gets sadder and sadder.
Yeah, exactly. This was a challenging process, both because I had no idea what the music should sound like, and also because it was the first interactive piece of music in the game. So the technical sort of just how does this work was also a part of it. But as it turned out, this music was changed. I mean, Jake, you may remember this. This music changed relatively little over the course of development in comparison to a lot of.
I think it started off as maybe 3 pieces, and it expanded out to 5 over development. But other than that, it's one of the first things dropped in, shipped. Get ready to hear about that a lot on this commentary.
You go this way. Man, why did I do this? It's really sad. Great game, though, to great effect. The emotional weight of this cartoony-looking game.
I'm Nels Anderson, and I was a designer and gameplay programmer on Firewatch.
I am Jane Ng, and I worked on the 3D environment art in Firewatch.
So you're likely standing at the base of your home away from home. You're home in the wilderness. For all intents and purposes, more or less, this is basically just a real straight up tower like they existed out in the woods, right?
Yeah, I think it is Portland. There's somebody in Portland who was very good about archiving a lot of blueprints about various type of fire lookouts of the state, and we got some, and so that's how we started off building the Firewatch. I mean the lookout tower, just by looking through how they were actually built.
It's slightly taller than a real one, right?
We had to make quite a bit of adjustment because, for example, the stairway you see here, normally fire lookout stairways are not on the outside, but for more interesting gameplay and views for the player, we opted to change that. But ultimately we still wanted the tower to feel like a real tower, so we had to figure stuff like, hey, how does the plumbing actually work? How do they get water? Stuff like that. It actually is very important for a real tower.
And if you go look around the base of the tower, you'll actually see a big old plastic cistern.
We are not a survival game of any sort, but it is important to make sure that all that stuff is actually thought out, so the space feels realistic.
Right. You don't want someone playing the game being like, wait a minute, there's no how does this guy drink? How is he not dead?
When I normally play video games, I'm always interested in stuff like, hey, where's the bathroom? So here we have the outhouse and you can go anywhere, but stuff like water is very important. So in a real fire lookout situation, what they do is they will use a cistern, and they will capture rainwater from the roof, and you will actually see that we actually have a little pipe down from the roof, and we even have what they call a first flush filter being there, which is actually what they use.
That's my favorite kind of filter, really.
I had to look up what do they do, because once you go, okay, you collect rainwater from the roof, it won't be all nasty. And then, oh, hey, somebody already figured that out on how to collect rainwater. What do you know?
We actually visited a number of different lookout towers as we were researching the game, and it was always very satisfying to see elements of things we saw in the real world and make their way back into the game, and vice versa.
So we also made sure to have a tab here, like a little faucet, where you can actually get water from the cistern.
Yeah, if you click on it, it will play an animation of a hand gripping a knob and water comes out for 2 seconds. Doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
But it's there.
I think for a while we actually were thinking should we just let the player turn on the water? But then what happens if the water just runs out? And then James had a very good idea of just going just make one animation that you turn on the faucet and turn it off immediately, just so that hey, there's water in here and you won't die. That's Henry.
6:45.
Whoops.
Don't worry about it. That hike puts everyone out of commission for a day or two. But now that you're up, let me quickly get you acquainted with the job.
Where's the
There's
sink
a
she was
thing in the
talking
middle of
about?
your room with a round map on it. Do you see it?
Okay, yeah, I see it.
This is the Osborne Firefinder, invented in 1914 by W.B.
Osborne?
You use this to spot, you guessed it, What the fuck?
What is it?
Nothing. You use this to... Oh, fuck me!
Good God, language, lady.
Out your west-facing window. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Are those fucking
West.
fireworks?
Oh, there you go.
Whoa, that's not legal, right?
No. You need to get down there right now and stop them. Fire danger is through the fucking roof.
Is that really my job?
Your job is whatever I say it is. Look, the closest ranger is 2 days away. Go down there and set them straight.
I mean, there's a sink, but where's the knobs like they talked about?
Do you think you can handle that?
Kick the shit out of them sort of straight?
No. Jesus, no.
What? I'm not a cop. It's not like I've got a rule book over here.
Just make sure they don't do it again. Take their shit.
All right, fine.
Don't feed anyone a knuckle sandwich. Get going. You'll probably need a rope to get down the shale between you and the lake, if I remember right. There should be one in the supply box on the way. The code is 1234. It's actually that for all of them.
Secure.
Shut up.
Nels, it feels like you on the team did the most sort of digging about what the real job is like, what is in the actual space, and then checked us against reality when we kind of went off the reservation.
In general, I really like doing research. That's sort of a thing I've enjoyed on all the projects I've worked on. So for this, a bunch of folks on the team read this great book called Fire Season by Philip Connors, which is kind of like a memoir-ish thing from this dude who still is an active fire lookout even today. But I also just I called up the Ministry of Forests and Natural Resources here in British Columbia and got redirected to like 3 increasingly small Ministry of Forest offices until someone just gave me literally the phone number of this cool old lady who had once been a fire lookout. So I just kind of chatted with her for like an hour and a half just about what doing the job was like. The reason why the game is not a simulation of being a fire lookout is because what everyone talks about is that the number one challenge with the job is that it is incredibly, impossibly boring.
Because you can't, like, read a book. You can't, like, be doing other things, right? Like,
Not really.
yeah.
At the end of day 3, where Delilah mentions it's like, Kenny's like, well, what do I do for the rest of summer? She's like, you sit in that chair and you look out the window. That is actually what fire lookouts really do. So all the folks I talked to said, like, figuring out ways to combat boredom is the number one thing. The lady I talked to, she said she did a whole lot of needlepoint and cross stitch because you can do that without looking at your hands very much.
Interesting.
Obviously, like, lookouts are also responsible for doing, maintenance on their towers. But again, it's like not maintenance because some crazy Yahoo smashed up your tower. It's maintenance like, oh, the paint is kind of flaking off. Better paint it. Or these trees have grown too tall, so I need to chop them down. Not, I'm chopping down trees to form a weird log bridge.
The main takeaway from whenever we would talk to someone who had done this job is, why would you make a game about that? That is the most boring time of my entire life. So hopefully we showed them how.
It feels like people who do this job like fall into 2 camps, right? They're the people who think they can do it and can't hack it and bail.
That's me.
After like a month or 2. People like Jack Kerouac who tried to do this and wrote about it in Desolation Angels, and then he went crazy from a lack of cigarettes and then left. Or the people who kind of enjoy the solitude and then figure out ways to deal with it. But we do have like a lot of the window dressing for the stuff people use. Like other folks I talk to, it's like, what do you do? Well, we read a lot of books and we like trade the books between the different lookouts through rangers and stuff like that. So of course Firewatch has a crap ton of weird books in it. Stuff like that.
Cool. Yeah. Before they said that, I was thinking about, man, I would love to do that job. But yeah, being a Firewatch is not much different than living by yourself during quarantine. You're just looking for shit to do. Although there's probably not much internet out there, huh?
Hi there, it's Jake.
And Chris again.
Hey, so here we are in the cache box clearing, or at least I guess that's what we call it. There's a lot of cache boxes in Firewatch, but this was the first one that we placed into the game.
For a long time, this was the cache box.
It was the cache box, even though we knew we wanted to have more. This area was actually one of the first areas that we built out to any degree that looks like a piece of the world. It was a really good proving ground for us. Like when me and Nels Anderson were grayboxing the world at the very beginning, we tried a million different things. Like maybe this was on the edge of a cliff, or maybe it was a secret that you had to find. And I think it was Sean who suggested that he really wanted it to feel like a warm, sort of enclosed space, like you've stumbled onto a little glen and you want to stay there for a while, which I think makes sense because we wanted people to actually stop and poke around and have it not feel like the woods.
This was an area with a lot of firsts. I remember this really ended up looking a lot like Ollie's concept art in a way I think that felt like an accomplishment when it all got built out. It was also the first audio I implemented in the entire game, I believe.
The Foley on the locks and the lid?
Right, exactly.
Oh, this was, this was also, the cache box was also our proving ground for detailed object interaction with Henry animating the lock. And also, there's an exit out if you back up and turn left. That was the first time I prototyped one-way drops and also any like sort of secret paths, because the way that you cross the canyon also showed up here, and I didn't tell anyone on the team about it for like months, and people only noticed it once they started playing the back half of the game, and it was very fulfilling for me.
Nice.
Cache box.
Cache box, land of firsts and secrets.
That's the state flag of cache boxes.
That's probably Dave Gaskell. He's completely nuts.
Do people lose their shit doing this job? There's a note that says a guy just left his post.
It happens, yeah. You're not gonna pop your top, are you, Henry?
I wasn't planning on it. Hey, there's a snack in here. I'm probably gonna eat it.
You definitely do not want to do that.
I tracked down that rope. It was right where you said.
Great. So you should be set to get down to the lake.
Check on the stream real quick. So good.
Jake,
Oh, hey, Sean.
you did a neat thing here in the game that I like a lot, which is when you make a dialogue choice with Delilah about what this dangerous hill should be called. It shows up on your map, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, when we were putting the map system together, well, actually, the map weirdly was one of the latest things, one of the final things to come into the game as a fully fleshed out piece. But an upside of that is we built the map using a lot of tools we already had. For instance, the system that checks which things you have and haven't talked about, which things you haven't found in the game. Use the same variable list as our speech system. So when I was putting this together, I realized, oh, not only can I put a mark down on the map when Henry finds it or talks about it, but I can totally look at the same tools we use for dialogue and figure out what the player said and put it on the map.
That's cool.
And the end result felt really natural. I actually wish we'd gone a little deeper on it in the game, but I'm really happy with what's in there right now. Also, please name this shitty boss is going to get me killed, because that's objectively the best name for the hill.
Awesome.
Take your handwriting?
Yeah, you gotta you gotta cram that in there, but it's still readable.
That's a fun little thing.
No! Hey,
What the hell's wrong with you?
my shitty boss almost got me killed.
First, your boss is a delight. Secondly, Jesus. What exactly happened?
My rope snapped coming down the shale slide.
You didn't break anything, did you?
No, I think I'll make it.
Well, be careful for Christ's sake.
Oh. Oh, I missed 4 at 2 forks. Four. You have a number of them every day? Okay, well. Oh, I can't go back. Shit.
Hey, there's a tie-off point off here just a little away from the shale slide.
Well, you ready to get back on that horse, huh?
Well, I can't go any further is what I'm saying.
That heads south down to the creek, but you should be able to get to the lake just by continuing west. Without any, mountaineering.
All right.
It's a long summer. You can explore later.
Wow, there's a big rock outcropping down here near the lake. It's really something.
Yeah, makes for good camping. There used to be a group of guys who would boulder out there a couple times a year.
What happened to him?
Dunno, just stopped coming out.
Hi, this is Ollie Moss, and I was the art director on Firewatch.
I'm Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Let's talk about this teen
Let's
party
talk about this.
zone.
Let's talk about the Teen Zone. So the Teen Zone is one of the first areas that we used as a sort of art test to see how we would go about building the rest of the game.
We knew from the pretty early on that, on day 1, you will start from the tower, and you will have to head down to the lake, and somewhere in between, you will see some teens, and they're partying. And so we call this the teen zone because this is where all the teen stuff is.
Yeah, and it was important to us that the reveal that it was a group of teens was communicated through the level design. So the idea was that you just kind of like walk through some trees and burst out into this scene where a campfire was still burning.
And you had a pretty strong idea of what you wanted to look like.
Yeah, I just wanted to put some big angular rocks in there, which is basically the like my modus operandi for the entire game. But we wanted to have a big angular sort of rock, which became known as Pride Rock because it looked so much like the rock from the Lion King.
We did name that Pride Rock, didn't we? That rock does serve as a very strong landmark pretty early in the game, and it kind of does point the player in the right direction.
Exactly. Should we talk a little bit about our process for designing these areas?
So in the beginning, when we just have like no concept art, we will just mock it out with just gray, literally just gray boxes and a gray terrain. And then we will take screenshots and give it to Ollie to be like, please pretty this up, Ollie.
Oh, well, first of all, I'll do a terrible garbage sketch and pitch it to the team. And if people like the gist of it, then we'll go away and do a bit more of a detailed drawing, and then you would go.
Yeah, we'll add in some more shapes. And then we just keep going back and forth with paint overs from Ollie.
And then it's just a sort of tennis, really, just back and forth between the two of us until everyone's happy with what we have.
Yeah.
They're obviously still there, so tell them off and then head back.
I found a bra.
A nudie pyromaniac. Remain professional.
There are panties.
There are what?
There's a. Ooh.
Yes?
There are two naked ladies out here.
Can you handle that?
I found them in the lake.
Skinny dipping.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
My name is Patrick Ewing. I worked on tools and gameplay programming.
The teens, Patrick.
Let's open some old wounds here.
This is like going back to like an old battleground and being like on these hollowed grounds.
Yeah, I
bad
died on
things
this hill.
happened. I died on this hill.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the most complex interactions in the game, if not the most, right?
Yeah.
And it was in the game from the very first vertical slice we did, and then I think we kind of added to it as we played through it and saw like, oh, we should be able to throw the boombox in the lake, obviously, right? Okay, the teens need to react to the boombox being in the lake. Oh, but then they should also react to you putting it down.
What you should do if you're making a video game is build relatively ironclad, predictable AI and systems that react to inputs. But instead, we built a series of relatively flimsy state machines that were like, if this, but not when, and also if.
Right.
And we're able to create this scene as designed. And Patrick was sort of the shepherd of this scene. So whenever anything would break, if you were to throw the boombox and the teens were not to respond, or you leave with the boombox and they would talk about something else, it was Patrick's job to ferret into the state machine and figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and I'm happy with how it turned out. There are so many different ways that this scene can play out now, depending on what you choose to do. Do you throw the fireworks at them? Do you talk to them and then start messing up their stuff and throwing it in? And it ends up being pretty like believable. They feel like real characters. It's just such a crazy spaghetti code in the back end that I'm always terrified when I see someone play through it, that there's some interaction that we didn't think about.
Right now, the player is interacting with the teens in a way that is completely not by the book. And
I mean, luckily we
beads
haven't...
of sweat or building on your brow.
Yeah, I think it's just a PTSD response at this point. We would see the bug reports if this was actually still breakable.
Yeah.
I found a sweatshirt from the University of Eastern Colorado.
There's a University of Eastern Colorado?
I really don't think there is.
Why would somebody make that up?
Right, and then put it on a sweatshirt.
The world's a weird place.
Hello, my name is Erin Yvette, and I'm the voice of Chelsea.
Hi, my name is Nikki Rapp, and I'm the voice of Lily.
And we're the drunk teens in the lake.
The obnoxious, skinny dipping, drunk, firework blasting teens.
This isn't the first time that you've played a Lily, though.
It is not. It's actually the third time I've played a Lily. My first Lily was Lily Zanotto in Psychonauts, and then I played the lovable Lily in The Walking Dead from Telltale. And now I'm Lily and Campos Santos' amazing game Firewatch.
I'm pretty sure the backstory behind my character's name is that it's Sean Vanneman's girlfriend's name. Slightly less
That's
backstory
pretty
for me
rad,
personally,
though.
but she's a cool person in real life, so it's fine. Although I wouldn't
good.
say that this character is based off of her because this character is. I guess I always pictured her being changing majors constantly in college because she like can't decide what she wants to do. Like she's gone through like psychology and sociology and like and just constantly flunking out of everything.
Yeah,
So she's
I
just
think-
switching until something sticks.
That's good you had ambition. I don't think my character really... I think she just was kind of drawn, cutting class.
This isn't the first time that they've done something like this.
Not at all. I think they were professionals at it. They were good. They were good at getting people to buy them booze, you know,
Totally.
that kind of a thing. That's good. Stand outside of 7-Eleven.
Whenever people ask me like, "Oh, who did you play in Firewatch?" It's like, "Oh, remember that time on day one where like you saw these silhouettes of like gyrating women? I was one of those. I
Yeah,
probably
like
called you a fucking
bras.
asshole. That was me."
That's a dubious honor, but it's still an honor.
Totally, yeah. A little tiny bit of a really cool game.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
What, 15 miles away? Why would they do that?
Well, the short story is that for 60 years we got very good at not letting forest fires happen. And then about 15 years ago, they decided that forest fires in wilderness areas like Yellowstone should be left to burn. So that's what they did. I can't believe you didn't hear about this.
It's new dialogue to me.
Hi everyone, this is Ben Burbank. I'm a programmer at Campo Santo, predominantly doing graphics work and performance stuff, and I'm here with Jane.
Hi, I'm back.
And we're going to talk a little bit about, in general, how the world sort of streams in. This is a big open world game. There are, like, what, tens of thousands of trees somewhere in there?
Yeah, and we have how many chunks of the world that we stream in and out?
There are 100 plus.
Yeah, I think over 120.
One of the big challenges with that was we have to remove parts of it when you're not looking at it, because video game consoles and computers don't like to draw things that aren't seen.
Especially not a lot of trees.
Yeah, it's a lot of work for that little graphics card to do to try and draw all those that big forest. So the canyon's one of the spots where we have like obvious occlusion where you can't see most of the world. So we unload like the tower hub. The tower that you see in the canyon is fake. It's a small fake version.
Yeah.
Which is a common trick.
Yeah, so it's like a very low cost version of what it would actually be there.
One of the biggest challenges for Jane and people building the levels was figuring out line of sight. So how far can you see? Like if you have a point where you can see entirely across the map, we had to be very careful about what is actually loaded and what's actually drawing.
Yeah, so even though the canyon is pretty much a straight corridor, we had to put in some kinks in there. So, you know, like right sort of in the middle, there's a little area where you have to go around a rock. This is so that we could make sure you won't be looking at the lake when we basically delete it out of the world.
Yeah. The game also, you know, it's sort of non-linear. Like there's a linear story going on, but there's the ability for the player to just go backwards. So we also had to keep in mind like reverse line of sight and things like that, which is a little different than a traditional action game or something.
Yeah, it's kind of like a little puzzle game almost to figure out when we stream in and out things. So hopefully you don't notice any of it, because if you do, that's actually us not doing a great job.
You probably will notice it though sometimes. I'm sorry about that.
Shout out to any viewers in here.
I didn't name it.
How's your Sunday going?
NFS tells people not to go too far in there. It's pretty dangerous.
So,
So I say, fuck it. You're a grown man. You can go where you want.
hello? It looks like the path leads through the cave.
Back in the cave, huh? Man.
Hi, I'm Jane. We're back.
And I'm Ollie.
Let's talk about this cave, Ollie.
Oh, let's not.
This cave really gave us all quite a bit of headache, actually. I was actually kind of having a mini panic attack, because one of the hardest things to light in games actually is any area that's sort of half indoor and half outdoor, and this cave is a pain in the butt to light.
Interesting. I
Well,
hadn't thought about that.
We thought you'd be an old pro at this, having worked on a game called The Cave.
How do you light this?
But yeah, it caused a lot of problems in terms of the logic gating of the environment switches, because every time the time of day changes in the game, it it then like sets that time of day.
Because there's no
So-
doorway really.
So the way the cave is lit, it actually just changes the time of day in the whole game. So like when you hit a trigger, if you could somehow magically transport yourself back outside the cave, you'd see like the sun spinning through the sky, the sky changing, and it was really hard to make that process invisible to the player and make it feel natural.
Not to mention that when you're inside the cave, everything also has to look really dark.
Mhm.
And we use a method called image-based lighting throughout the game. And that basically means that
The
all
image
the
lights
objects,
itself.
all the trees and rocks just look out to the sky to see what their lighting should be.
Oh,
And
cool.
so in the cave, we actually had to do sort of like a fake sky for anything inside that is just pure black. So the lighting inside would be appropriately dark.
But still navigatable to a player without the
Exactly.
flashlight.
And also to be able to have a smooth transition when you're going from the brightly lit outside to the really dark inside and coming back out again and having all the appropriate logic for the time of day, like Ollie said, it was just a real pain in the butt.
Cool.
I love the little details in Firewatch's branching dialogue. There are a lot of very subtle, hard to notice things that Sean put in while writing it that you really couldn't notice without multiple playthroughs, but they add up to this feeling that you're talking to real people who, just like real people, kind of echo back things you said earlier, who continue in jokes that have been established, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the subtlest that I don't think I even noticed, so I was rewiring the game midway through, is the spooky figure who you meet towards the end of day one.
Spooky figure. If the teens call you a creep, Henry calls the guy who's putting a flashlight in his face a creep.
Right.
And he goes, "There's some guy out here creeping," or he says something like, "He's a creep out here." She's like,
Yeah.
"A creep, Henry?" He's like,
Right.
"Yeah, there's a guy who's spooking me out here.
Right.
I don't like it." And I mean, I like doing stuff like that. I pay a lot of attention to the sort of infectiousness of language.
Yeah.
Especially in this office, someone will start using a turn of phrase that then I'll be at lunch with someone later, or I'll be out with Jake or whatever, and then I'll hear the phrase
Theory crafting.
through them,
Yeah.
where it's like, like if somebody was saying, "Oh, there was a total creep outside at the bus stop," then it wouldn't be long, like 18 hours later, it would be totally conceivable to hear Jake be like, "Oh yeah, that guy's kind of a creep. I don't know if we should have him by or whatever."
Yep.
And I'd be like, "Man, okay, like that word is now like bubbling along the surface of our social network here."
Mm-hmm.
And people are like that. People are weird, sort of like passive, like non-participatory sponges sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just like putting that stuff in the writing. And you can do that in games in a way that you can't do that in other media. If you do that in like a book or something, it's so double underlined that it feels like you're making a big point as an author. But in a game, because it's player driven and it's passive, it just feels causal and the way the world.
So it's just the outhouse then, in terms of going to the bathroom? So this generator is all the power I've got out here.
Yep, it doesn't go through much gas, and, well, you don't have much in the way of electronics, so...
What about my hairdryer?
Oh, I'm sorry. You might just have to make peace with frizzing logs.
Chris again here.
Hey, and Jake, congratulations, player. You have completed the teen loop.
Oh man, that's true. This is the end of what was originally called teenloop.unity, a scene file in our game engine Unity, because we thought that was just going to be the file corresponding to the first
this piece
sort
of game that you've just played.
Yeah, this first big objective.
But then we kept building, so all of Firewatch is in fact saved inside of a file called teenloop.unity. So
Yep, the
know
entire
that for the
game.
rest of your play experience, you are inside of the teen loop.
Yeah. This part of the game, you probably are right now if you're listening to these commentary notes basically in sequence. The music is either about to kick in or has just kicked in. It's dark, you're finding your tower's been broken into. This, I really strongly remember feeling when this went into the game and had the music, which was actually the first music implemented in the entire game. All this stuff together felt to me like the first real moment of assertive tension in the game, and it felt really great.
Yeah, because we had
Yep.
our
I agree.
environment system working for the first time, so the sky turned to nighttime,
Yep.
and our world logic allowed the tower to switch into its broken into state just when you were off in the world for the first time. And then
Cool.
when that music finally came in, we're like, oh, wow, okay, this is a world that's alive and can be tense and cinematic.
Yep.
And all of it happened without us ever having to cut the camera. I remember we were all very proud and stoked of that.
For
That
sure.
must have
was
been
like
so
right before we
satisfying.
First demoed the game, I think, at the Penny Arcade Expo.
Yeah, because the end of day one was the end of the first demo.
Yeah.
Right before this, there's the moment with the creepy guy in the woods, and that was sort of a moment of tension. But that's also arguably maybe not, because it's immediately deflated by Delilah.
Right, but this you're like,
was like,
holy crap.
Okay, I remember feeling kind of nervous about it because it was like the game is declaring this is a tense moment, and if it falls flat, we have failed. We can't like make a joke to diffuse it. And I think it basically worked, and it was a real relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I missed this one in the beginning. Let's hear it out.
Hey, it's Jake again.
And it's Jane again.
All right, let's talk about Two Forks Lookout. I mean, we could just talk about lookout towers in general in video games. Well, you built it. You want to talk about it?
Yes. So lookout towers have standard sizes, actually. I think most of these were either
Oh, this spigot.
14 feet by 14 feet in the inside, or something like 7. Like there's actually
Like
a
tiny,
standard.
wow.
Yeah, the cabins have standard sizes, and the ones that you have a bed and stay in are the 14 feet ones. And we realized through a few experiments that if you make a space that's actually 14 feet in the game, it would be too tiny.
Yeah, I remember you found a lookout tower enthusiast website that had posted the actual blueprints that the state parks and forest service used. So we're like, we're doing this.
Yeah.
We're building it to scale.
Yes.
It's
And
tiny. You can't move around.
It's tiny, and then basically the camera just has no room to maneuver at all.
Yeah, and you just feel like a fat guy, like you can't fit between your desk and the firefinder.
Yeah, and it feels like you're just in a shoebox. So we did a few experiments. I was like, okay, how about it's twice as big? And when it's twice as big, and it's just like no.
Palatial fire lookout cribs.
And then like on the outside, the silhouette of the space also looks wrong. So we ended up with I think something like 1.5 size bigger than real life, and it feels like a real fire lookout.
Over the course of the game, as things change, there's a bunch of variants of the tower too, right? I mean, simple stuff like the broken window, but then also we move furniture around. Henry gets moved in over the time.
Yeah, there are different states of the interior, and we achieved that by actually swapping out the whole interior set. Like 7 or 8 times, I think.
A lot of times.
As the game moves on, then more and more of his stuff starts showing up, and then Henry is a slob, and so his like undies are everywhere and all
Window
that
gets
stuff.
broken, window gets fixed,
Exactly.
conspiracy board goes up. Yeah, and dirty socks get all over the place. Just tell the story of some slobby dude up here.
Maybe that guy I saw in the canyon, but I don't know why the fuck he'd want to mess with my stuff.
Well, I'll have the Rangers keep an eye out for a man hiking on his own and question him if they find him. I can't believe someone would do this. I worry about bears and fires, and that's about it. And now I've got to worry about some deranged hiker going after lookouts? Great. Okay, in the morning I'm gonna call my friend Patty, who works the desk down in Cody. They keep a list of everyone who's officially been in and out of the trailhead since, I don't know, forever, and see if we can get a list of names. We won't get much, but at least if anything else happens, we can refer to it and see if anything comes up.
Thanks.
I need you to feel safe out here.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, you can protect yourself, huh?
I just don't worry about it.
Perfect. Keep that attitude up and you'll have an excellent summer.
Day 2. Forgot that was all on day 1. Interesting. Shout out to all the Russian bots in chat.
Wake up. Hey, wake up.
Yep.
I'm awake. What's your problem?
Our problem.
Sorry, our problem.
That storm knocked out the phone line I used to talk to the service, which means we're cut off. I tried radioing out, and that's not working either.
Can I go fix it?
Well, you probably can't, but what you can do is hike out to where the wire runs through your area and report back if it's down. Then I can track down a ranger to get someone on it.
Okay, I can do that. Where is it?
Remember that cave you hiked through yesterday?
Yeah, of course.
So you're gonna want to go back there, go through it, and keep going straight to the north when you come out.
Will do.
Thanks, Hank.
It's Henry.
What, you don't like Hank?
Yeah, I don't like Hank.
But thanks rhymes with Hank.
No, it doesn't.
Okay, alright.
And you play 3. Is this like location 3 or tape 3? Because I heard it yesterday. Let's see.
I am Chris.
And I'm Sean, and day 1 ended abruptly. A lot of games don't do that structurally.
Yeah.
You sort of get to an end point, you touch a flag, or you continue on infinitely with no cuts.
Right.
Cuts are very rare in games that have sort of a...
First-person games especially.
Yeah.
The idea for that came from the movie Dallas Buyers Club.
So interesting.
I know. I remember so specifically seeing the first time that movie cuts to a day title card, where you learn that the Matthew McConaughey character has diagnosed with AIDS and essentially given 30 days to live, and then it cuts and it says day 1, and it was that was like a gut punch when you see that because of what it implies, and I was like, oh man, our game is set in basically a limited amount of time, and there's like this tense thing that happens that makes it, it's not as though there's like a specific date that's coming up, but there is like tension now that exists. Also, we had to figure out just how to get around the fact that we had a big open world and needed to tell a linear story, and so I just came in the next day and pitched that idea based on that movie.
And we all just thought it was like stylish and interesting and solved so many problems, so we did it.
Ended up creating a lot more problems, but I think it worked overall.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey, it's Ollie again. And Jake. Hey, Jake. So I feel that we're right now in close proximity to Forrest Burns.
I think the idea for Burns came around when we realized that Smokey the Bear was not a public domain figure. And we realized, but also something that people associate really closely, the idea of a mascot with wilderness parks.
Right, so what if we created something far worse than Smokey the Bear?
What if we made something horrifying and strange? And the original idea was that as the game kind of built up, you'd find these Forrest Burns posters that would get gradually more sinister and be this sort of like externalization of Henry's inner paranoia sort of creeping in. But we didn't do that. We just made a wacky character and stuck him in the game.
I think there's one of the Forrest Burns posters survives in a couple places.
Mm-hmm.
Like Delilah's Tower at the end has the Forrest Burns can dig it poster.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that says "snuff it out" with him holding a match
does not appear in the game.
The face of a child. Yeah, it's not there.
No, that's out.
Yeah, I know. Even up until the moment that Forrest Burns went into the game, I feel like there was a hesitance from the team to include him in the game. But
I went and just put him in.
you rogue modeled the Forrest Burns stand-up, and then right before the GDC demo, I put him on the back of the outhouse.
Yes.
And then it turns out that he was really fun. Fun Forrest Burns fact: for a while, you could use him as a physics object, and then we've discovered that you could surf Forrest Burns and use him to get to inaccessible areas. So
That's
you
cool.
can no longer do that, unfortunately.
That's much to my chagrin.
Yeah, surf Burns down the shale slide, not allowed. Anyway,
That's awesome.
him. Enjoy him.
Yep.
Use him well.
Hey, it's Chris again.
And Sean.
Hey.
Hey.
So the conversation that you may be hearing or may be coming up soon has Delilah taking a call from another lookout. Unbeknownst to her, Henry can hear this all happening. And when she finishes that call, you as the player can choose to call her on it or not call her on it. And that was a very interesting piece of writing and design, I think.
Yeah, I really loved the idea we had here, and I love the way it is performed, but I feel like I especially would add something to it if I were to go back into the game and noodle around. It was this is a kind of a confusing call for people, and I'm sure if it was for you, you'll understand why, which is that people get really hung up on the fact that Delilah takes this mysterious call, and then it's never sort of overtly explained that she's just doing her job. She's just literally just talking to someone else, and the lens through which you hear it is 100% is Henry's paranoia. But I feel like that could have been underscored here way more had I let you, the player, find a nuanced middle ground and sort of pry at her about what that call was without freaking out. If you call her on it, Henry gets very, very defensive. And while I think that goes to illustrate the fact that Henry doesn't have a lot of capacity for nuance and middle ground because he's so damaged and bummed to be in the situation he's in. I feel like he kind of did players a disservice by not letting them feel out the relationship and a potential mystery early on.
I think that dated from an earlier revision of the game in which we were barreling towards more of a hard break between Henry and Delilah.
Yes.
And this was maybe just one thing that didn't quite get that last tweak.
Yeah. But I still like the scene.
Me too.
Nevertheless.
Yeah.
I don't think he has any idea. What was that? Were you talking about me?
What?
You left your button pressed or something.
Henry, that call was work. I was just talking to... Actually, it's not really your business. Why are you freaking out?
I'm not freaking out.
Good. I'm gonna go quiet for a little bit. Call me if it's important.
Interesting.
Hey, I found a structure that might have been an outhouse once, I think.
Whoa, you don't need my permission to go to the bathroom, but, use abandoned shitters at your own peril.
I mean, I'm in the right area?
I do believe. The comms wire runs for quite a ways. Follow it all the way to the top of Beartooth Point, and if it's not damaged, you can loop around.
Oh, it's a poem. I'm headed off to Old Uh-oh. Excuse me. I'm headed off to Old Shoshone, where the birds and bees won't know me, where men in the war don't exist no more, and there ain't no goals to keep no score. I'm taking off for the woods to a place where there ain't no shoulds. Don't need no books, I'll ponder the ponderosas. Don't need no lady, I'll marry the Mariposas. I can't waste no time in getting there. I'll do 80 down 80 without a prayer. Don't need no gal, I'll spruce up for the spruces. Don't need no pal, I'll change my mood for the mooses. If you're wondering where's my ass been, it's been cavorting with the aspens. Don't need no grass, I'll get altered among the alders. Don't need no mass, I'll grovel for the boulders. I'm headed off to Old Shoshone, where the elk and the owls won't know me, where there ain't no judges to whom I gotta plead, because I can be me in Old Shoshone.
Back home.
I found an old notepad of, I guess, songs. Someone was writing a song called Old Shoshone.
Old Shoshone, where the sky is blue and the teens are nude.
It's just like that, except about 10 times more depressing.
Okay, keep going straight. Here we go. Oh, I have never seen this on my first playthrough. And there's a white... What? Hat.
Huh. Found an old hat from a Korean War vet.
You'd be surprised how many former service members take this gig.
Well, makes sense.
I imagine if you've been through war, you probably can't get enough silence.
Anything I should know about the cabin at the top of this hill? Hello? Okay, then.
Hi, Ollie.
Hi, Sean.
It's nice that we're doing a tape together.
I know, is this the first one?
It's our first and only one.
Oh, that's a shame.
I feel like we've done so much together not on tape. At least not recorded in a way that you know about.
Okay.
And here we are talking about Hawk's Rest.
Hawk's Rest.
You concepted this area.
Yeah, the idea was that it would seem from the outside a sort of innocuous little house on the edge of a cliff, much like your own lookout, but when you open the door you get the surprise that it's been burnt away and you just see a vista and sort of rush of wind as you open that door, and I thought that would be a really fun reveal to the player.
Yeah, and I sort of screwed it up when I first wrote this scene, because all of these sort of like Hawk's Rest dialogue and all the stuff about Raccoon Carter was as you were walking up the hill, you could report the cabin, which was a lookout tower, at the top of the hill, and then get into the story about its former inhabitant as you were approaching it, and then it sort of buried the moment in a way. So we took all that stuff out, and I hacked in very inelegantly, I think, that Delilah just doesn't answer you when you ask her about what the house at the top of the hill is, and then you get to experience it alone before getting the story about Raccoon Carter, and I'm really happy with the way that worked out. Also,
There's a secret.
but the raccoon that lives in the stove that you may or may not know about is only there on certain days
Interesting.
because of a myriad of design reasons. But if you're here on any day that isn't day 2 and you open that stove, there's a little
Spoilers.
critter in there. And that was animated by James, textured by Ollie, drawn by Ollie. I really like that raccoon, Oliver.
Thanks, Sean.
You did a very nice job on that raccoon. Also, you did a very nice job on the rest of the game. And I'm only going to tell you that on the Hawks Rest tape. I'm actually going to edit this out. I don't want anyone hearing me ever compliment you.
Fantastic.
In the record, but because these are on the tape together. But yeah, I really love the way this area came together.
It's lovely. Lovely the way it is. Very nice. Well done.
Well, that was that. That's neat. Oh, one moment. Let me check on something real quick. It would seem that we've had one new follower since last time, and that was Gordio283. So let me play that again. Shout out to Gordio. And back to the game. Okay, 19. Got it.
Hey, it's Jake again.
And Mark's here.
So, is there anything style-wise that you had to consider on this game as opposed to doing work in I don't know, a lot of the other stuff you've done is probably more AAA in scope.
Yeah, I mean, my previous work, I've done a lot more just ridiculous, over-the-top Hollywood-type blood squibs and explosions and laser beams and that kind of jazz. So it was neat to just sort of stop and think about what the relevant effects to walking around a national park would be.
Right.
Just sort of ambient, natural, secondary motion that you would want in the world without it being obnoxiously overpowered as most things you would do for a AAA action game.
You know, the entire world looks hazy and covered in smoke as the fire gets closer and closer, and obviously we couldn't just fill the entire world with smoke because everyone's graphics card would melt and it would also look like a big pile of garbage. So it seems like you and Paolo, who did a lot of the sort of programming side of this, ended up inventing this thing that the team called the Henry Smoke Barfer, which
I do think Nels actually coined that one, but yeah,
it was probably Nels.
Yeah, it's a very Nels thing to say.
Yeah, Henry at this point in the game is wandering around with basically a pigpen cloud around him. When you see the sparks flying around on day 79 or the sort of lingering haze on days 77 and 78, that's actually just Henry's body emitting those, then leaving them behind as a trail.
I made up a group of emitters that rotate around the watchtower that, if you look real closely, you could probably make it out, but it gives that sort of feeling of it's super intensely smoky outside without
you're in the middle of this big swirling storm, but actually it's just, 6 feet of smoke spinning around the outside of the building.
Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't really know him that well, but I always assumed the only thing Ron cared about was chasing tail and getting loaded. It's somehow comforting to know that he was able to keep up a correspondence with someone who wasn't going to send him a topless Polaroid.
Follow the line.
Hey, Chris again.
And Sean.
Hey, if you saw the second trailer for Firewatch, there's a moment that takes place here where Delilah points out that there's someone in Henry's tower. Henry points out that he's not there. Camera swings back to the tower, and it's a big dramatic ending. Of course, that moment happens in a completely different part of the map in the actual game and has totally unrelated to this moment that you're now experiencing.
And this was a trailer that we had debuted with Sony at E3, so we knew we had a big audience and that a lot of people were going to see it. It's really, really challenging. I mean, you all know, because everyone goes to movies, what it's like to watch a trailer for a movie that you're excited about and maybe have already decided to see and then be shown too much stuff.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, a movie either has like the ability to or sort of the chutzpah to just show you a scene that hit the cutting room floor or an alternate version of something that gets you feeling the way you should feel and excited for the movie as presented, but doesn't spoil it for you. And I think I'm really happy that we ended up doing that. I think it's good. Like, you're not lying. It's not like we showed you a mechanic that you can't do or anything like that.
I think that we basically had to find a way to accurately convey the type of tension and mood of the game without spoiling it. And so we basically ended up just writing those trailers to fit. I think it worked.
Yeah. I'm happy with it.
Hey, so the wire is definitely down out here. I just found it.
That's actually good to hear. I can send someone out to fix it. Good find.
Yeah, the thing is, it doesn't look like the wind. It looks like it was cut deliberately.
I knew it the moment you said you found their trash. These idiots are gonna pay. Do they realize this is how people die? I mean, what if something happened to one of my lookouts while this was going on? And God forbid there's an actual fire burning out of control.
What do you want to do?
I want you to go find them.
And then what?
I haven't thought that far ahead. That's not true. Everything that comes to mind is illegal.
Let's hear it. Do you see anything from yours, like, clues as to where they could be?
Clues. I really like your enthusiasm for mystery.
I'm just doing my job.
I like it. I do. I can't wait for you to give these girls a piece of minds collective. But no clues. I can't see anything from here.
Okay. What is this way? No.
There's an abandoned pack out here.
And it's not one of the teens?
No, it looks like it was lost a long time ago.
Well, you could always pilfer it for supplies.
Well, I am flush with ropes now. That pack was full of them, in decent condition too.
That's lucky.
I mean, there's enough rope here that I could just leave them hooked up, I think. Oh, get this. This pack came with one of those cardboard single-use cameras.
With pictures left?
Yeah, he only used 3 or 4.
Neato.
Thank you, Brian Goodwin.
Wait, who?
Hi, it's Ben. Oh, it's Jake. Hey, Ben. So let's talk about Henry's camera. Or I guess, more specifically, the Goodwin family camera. We liked the idea of Brian and his dad bringing one of those little cardboard cameras out with them, and we had thought at various points in production, maybe we should cut taking photos because it's really complicated. Maybe you should just see the ones at the end in the credits and be shocked by the Goodwin family.
When I joined the project, I actually was super excited about this feature. I liked the idea of having the camera have a little bit of a real-world feel to it. People seem to like when you showed an animated GIF of it on Twitter. People went crazy remembering these things.
Especially once the idea was proposed that on PC you could print out your photos or you could upload them to the internet and get them developed, which is the thing that we do.
Yeah, the photos that we take are actually secretly 5 megapixel, first generation digital camera quality photos, but just good enough that if you print them out, they look okay.
Yeah, once we went all in on that as a concept, it seemed like having the camera in the game was an essential no-brainer, and then we went all in on making it work like a real camera. We really wanted, you'll have a fixed number of shots you can take. Every time you take a picture, Henry has to wind the camera by hand.
And some players ignore it and don't take pictures. They'll take the 2 that Delilah tells you to, and then the end credits will play and they'll see 2 pictures and maybe have a little feeling of loss that they didn't participate in that feature.
Yeah, or people who get super bummed because they get really into the mystery and take pictures of strange machines and ripped up campsites and a dead Brian Goodwin, and then get to the end credit sequence and go, oh, that was me.
Yeah, they only see the sad things.
I like
people
that
win.
depending on how much you use the camera and what you choose to take a picture of, you end up getting a different story at the end of the game. That's the thing that I think worked out the best with the camera and made me the happiest that we actually went all out on building this stupid thing.
Yeah, it's really nice.
What?
Hey, sorry about snapping at you earlier. I thought about it, and yeah, I suppose that must have sounded kind of weird when you heard me take that other call.
I see a really thin plume of smoke.
Yeah, I see it too. A thin plume like this is either a new fire or a campfire.
Campfire. You think it's them?
I reckon so.
It looks like it's to the...
Hey, Chris here.
And Patrick.
Hey, Patrick. So at this point in the game, we're starting off on the search for the teens. One big challenge we frequently had on Firewatch was figuring out how to guide players when the person giving you your current objective doesn't actually know where to send you. Delilah knows you need to find the teens, but neither of you have any idea where to start.
And in this case, we'd used telephone poles to get you up to Beartooth Point, and we're now using some beer cans to sort of lead you in the general direction away from that. Of course, we rapidly saw that these teens were drinking a truly ludicrous number of beers in one walk.
I think you and I both placed quite a few of these beer cans, probably you even more than I.
Yep.
It started to sort of strain credulity.
Right, which is why I think we had to add that case at the end just to make it plausible
Yeah,
that there are something like 30 cans out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably the best tool we ended up coming up with for this, which was the smoke plume,
Right.
was because we were getting increasingly uncomfortable with stretching fiction so far to the point of adding this many Hansel and Gretel
That's right.
beer cans.
That's right. And but even then, the smoke plume was not enough. Many players didn't notice it or weren't looking up, which we know is a common game design problem. And that's when we started adding dialogue where Henry could call into Delilah and basically say, "Where do you have any ideas? I'm lost. I still can't find them." Kind of mirroring what we saw in playtesting, where people did get lost and got frustrated.
Right.
Ultimately, when that fell down,
eventually, if you have not noticed anything, you haven't asked Delilah about any of this stuff, she will just call you and say, "Hey, I see some smoke. Maybe that's where you should go."
Right, and that pretty well sews it up.
The sort of full court press of all of those things. I think most players eventually find their way to the teens. I mean, we figured it was okay for players to get lost a little bit. I mean, that is the point of this. You are supposed to be on an aimless search a little bit on this mission, but I think with all of the different.
Oops.
Hi, I'm Will,
I'm off.
and I was the gameplay and systems programmer on Firewatch.
And I'm James, and I was the animator on Firewatch.
And we're here to talk about climbing and mantling today.
We had a bunch of stuff that essentially was more point-to-point interactive stuff, where you'd sort of like look to the rock you wanted to put your hand on and click on it, and you'd kind of do that. A lot of the platforming-y type stuff just got pared down because as you make the game, you realise what game you're making, and it's not really about being an athletic climbing person. It just kind of like made the game slower when you were trying to get to the next conversation. Mostly what the climbing stuff ended up being useful for in like game design terms was characterization. So some of the mantles do a decent job of getting across that Henry is kind of a lumbering, slightly heavier person, as we sort
What
of
is going on with the weather?
Henry kind of slug over an edge rather than being a nimble, mirror's edgy person.
We also use it a lot of times to break up sightlines so that you get a good vista as you come up over a mantle, like when you see the man with the flashlight for the first time, or kind of see the burned forest.
In the cave, sometimes we use the camera animation on mantles to hide a sort of teleport to a different part of the cave, which was pretty useful actually, so that was quite good.
The reason that it all got pared down is we didn't want you to ever fall off the cliff, didn't want you to back down them. Like, nobody ever wanted to climb back up those twice, so we just made them simpler and simpler and simpler until eventually getting to you just hit the button and climb all the way up.
One of the earliest conversations I had with Jake, he just sort of casually mentioned, oh, and we're thinking that you can't die in this game, and which now seems like the most obvious design decision ever for Firewatch, but I'd only been making games before then where it's like, yeah, and then you have your character can die and you respawn and like traditional video game stuff, and the idea suddenly of like, oh, like how do you make content that still feels like I'm climbing over stuff and I'm doing things, but with absolutely no risk. And I remember at the very beginning being like, oh god, is that going to be a huge problem? Well, of course now, if you ever saw Henry fall to his death in the game, it would be ludicrous and ruin the moment completely.
Absolutely.
But Firewatch 2 is going to have lots and lots of...
There going to be a Firewatch 2?
This is Ben again, and I'm here with Paolo.
Hello, I'm Paolo. I was the graphics programmer on Firewatch.
So we're here to talk a little bit about the time of day system that the game uses in the skybox
Oh,
stuff.
this is what
You're
it's
in an
for?
area where there's a weird device that you can use to step and mess around with those while we talk.
As you can see around you right now, you can walk on the different parts there, and you'll see the weather changing. So immediately when we started working on Firewatch, there were a couple of important points. We had to have a dynamic time of day. So at any point, people could trigger changing the sky, changing the fog, changing each individual component independently. At the same time, this has all sorts of technical implications, but the most important are, okay, how do we represent all this information? Games have many ways of baking data, which means that you sort of gather the lighting information in a scene and then you save it into memory, which is usually a texture or other data structures, to then use it in real time. Now, the problem with that was that we had a lot of different permutations and we wanted them to change in real time. And also, we didn't know ahead of time how many we were going to have. So we tried to go with a fully dynamic solution. In this case, what dynamic means is just that as you walk around, you'll see the sun moving around, the sky color changing, the fog color changing, and the shadows moving. So all those components are always rendered every frame, and there's no information that is stored anywhere.
So what pieces make up the sky again?
The sky, we tried first an approach of representing sort of a simplified version of the scattering equation and seeing what that would look like. And it was looking good in the game, but it was still very difficult to author. And since Ollie, as the art director, is absolutely talented with colors, at some point we just sat down and we sort of worked together and said, okay, imagine that you could just paint the sky in Photoshop and think about how that would work in the game. It might just magically work. And by doing that, we basically dissected his process of assembling just a painted sky in Photoshop, and we created a shader, which are basically programs that run on the GPU to render things, that suited his exact style. So really, the sky is just a series of gradients that blend into each other with a couple of controls to change curves and attenuations between them. So as you walk around, you'll be able to see how both the sky changes and then the fog adapts to the same color and the sun moves in the right direction. And then there were just a couple of numbers to make sure that like the brightness around the sun would be higher so that it would still sort of represent and give the feeling of what the sky and how the sky behaves.
And this like gave Ollie the ability to test some things very quickly.
Exactly. Having immediate feedback for filling a world that was as big as Firewatch, especially for the sort of limited team size that we had, was absolutely important. Like, we had to have a way so that artists would make something quickly, have an idea of what it would look in the game, and knowing that it was pretty close to what we were going to ship.
Yep.
We'll try to have some fun this summer. I promise.
Sweet.
Hey, Jane.
Hi, Jake. Let's talk about how I almost killed you over this canyon crossing.
Why would anyone have any objection to something in a game as lovely as this area?
So originally, when we first built this whole canyon, you can only walk through the bottom where the creek is.
It looks really lovely when you're walking on the bottom looking up.
And you cannot get close to anything.
You can just
up here.
imagine what the top of the canyon looks like, and you don't ever have to see it or make it.
Basically, there was nothing up here.
But what if, think about this though, what if you could walk across the top of it and look down, and then we built all of that too?
I just remember the day when you mocked this out in the paper map and just gingerly just showed it to me. And then I looked at it and I was like,
what's that line? What's that line doing going over there?
No way. No way, Jake.
There was no way I was going to win that. I mean, I ended up just building a lot of it myself to
And
try
then, and I think you were like, okay, how about this other thing? I was like, okay, this other thing is fine, but this is definitely not happening.
I just secretly built a million walls and trees and like did every single thing that I possibly could to make it so
But
you
you
would look
did
at
a good
it.
job though, because like the thing I was really worried about was when you're up there, you end up seeing basically the whole length of the canyon, and then also all the way to basically towards Delilah's tower, which means it's like
Right,
way
all the way
like
through like
Yeah.
the Beartooth Point
it would be
area,
like way
or
too much game to try to draw.
Mule Point.
So
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was the original sort of, you know,
It was a lot
fear.
of very careful, like, then you go around this turn and then you secretly drop down 3 feet and a bunch of
Yeah.
huge trees come up. I was very happy that we were able to get the canyon crossing in, because it's one of the few places where I think you do a total figure 8 over yourself.
It was nice that you managed to problem solve all the sight line areas before I lose my mind.
Thanks for not killing me. I'm alive to be on this commentary track.
Okay, making a right.
So, how'd you meet?
I met in a bar.
The birthplace of modern romance.
I walked over and asked her what her major was because I thought she was a student, not a prof.
Smooth.
That's me. I did make the first move, though.
Aw, you were brave.
I was drunk.
Is it? Nope.
Well, I'm back at my shitty boss is gonna get me killed hill.
You ready to give it another shot?
Do I seriously have to?
To get down to 5 Mile Creek? Yeah, afraid so. It's quite a ways downhill from here.
Alexa, turn on lights. Here we go.
Hi, this is Will.
And this is James again.
We're talking about the rope right now. You should be one nearby.
Yeah, the rope was the very, very first thing I ever did on the entire game. It kind of seeped into being quite an important part of the world layout. We sort of had this whole Metroidvania items thing, and the rope was very much our first, like...
The hell is that?
That's the rockets that let you get through the door in Metroid.
It's a glitch.
An early flag we planted in the ground for ourselves.
Interesting.
So, yeah, there were lots of technical things, weren't there?
All the rope climbs are different. All the rope slides are different. Minorly different, but different enough. So the rope had to be physically simulated. It couldn't be just a pre-canned animation. In order to get that to work, it took a ton of time, lots of iterations. In the end, I had to basically make Henry's hand a gravity well whenever he's on the rope, and then grab the nearest parts of the rope and reskin them to bones that I was just making out of math around Henry's hand and belt. So his like left hand, right hand, and belt are all take over as fake bones, and we reskin the rope every frame to get that to match up perfectly. And if you look real close at the rope, you can see sort of a little bit in front of his hands, the texture on it, the tiling changes and kind of squishes and stretches and squishes and stretches as you go down. And that's because the rope position doesn't naturally always like line up with even spacing when I swap in those fake bones.
Yeah, the rope is one of the best examples if you were to like zoom the camera out and look at what's going on, where like I'm sort of animating by the seat of my pants and like just keeping his hands in the perfect position so that that transition between the physics rope and the skinning version of the rope, you know, doesn't blend too strangely. And it's probably the set of animations in the game that has the most versions made. There's probably like 10 different versions of climbing down. There used to be things where your hands would swap in front of you, you know, picking the rope from one to the other, and obviously that is unbelievably, ridiculously complicated once we had a physical rope. And
nice thing is you can get on it from anywhere and at any time, and it all works. So it was worth it in the end, but quite a bit.
Thought she could do better.
Hello, this is Jane again.
And Chris.
And we are now by the lake. And you might be noticing that there's some really sweet duck sounds by the lake.
Jane bugged me for duck sounds for months. Actually, one of the oldest, you know, we track our tasks on the game with like a task tracker or a bug tracker. So you rank them all by priority. And I think the like lowest or second lowest priority thing on my list for months was duck sounds for Jane, and that just sat there until I think one day I just didn't have a lot to do, and I was like, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm bumping the duck sounds up the chain. I think I just looked on the internet for public domain duck noises.
Yeah, I think you were actually wondering what kind of ducks there would be too. You were
I
very
looked it
thorough.
up. I researched it, and I think I was like mainly there, you know, like I think I fudged it a little bit because I didn't want it to just be like the same two. I wanted there to be a variety so it didn't get annoying if you hung out there for a while.
It's not just ducks, it's like waterfowl.
Yeah,
of all
so
kinds.
so I branched out a bit, but we got them in.
Yay!
Thanks for bugging me about the duck sounds.
Yeah, it won't be a real lake without duck sounds.
Exactly.
I'm so lost. Okay, I think I'm on the right track now. Oop, we're not. Here we go. Did that. Did that. Now I gotta go down. Why don't I have that piece of the map? Here we go. All right. See a box around here, and I see it. What up, viewer? How's your Sunday going? Playing Firewatch with developer commentary. It's really cool. Kind of like had no intention of playing this game again. It was great, but you know, the mystery spoiled. But hearing the developer side is really neat.
How many hikers go missing in the Shoshone?
More than none, unfortunately, with most of them being in this area. The thoroughfare because it's so remote. Why?
I found an old flyer for a missing hiker. It just got me thinking, that's all. Like how you said one day you were talking to the Goodwins and then the next you weren't. Boy, for as dry as it is this summer, there's an area down here that's lush.
Oh, you must be talking about the Aspen Grove down there.
Yeah, I think that's where I am.
Those trees are actually one root organism. Did you know that?
Heard about those.
I didn't.
Yeah, they share their water as a colony that can live for hundreds of years, even through fire. Can you believe you're actually getting paid to learn all of these amazing things? Also, by what it looks like on this
Hi,
map,
this is Ben again, and I'm here with Paolo.
Hello.
We're going to talk about stylistic fog and some of the other effects in the game.
For the stylistic fog, we
Look at
basically
that.
use the same approach that we use for the other rendering components and technologies of Firewatch, which was how do we get something that allows Ollie and Jane to really just be directive and paint colors and information like they want into a 3D world. So the only challenge that was there really was how do we translate sort of a 3D scene that has depth into it, into layers of colors, and immediately we came up with this technique of using a one-dimensional texture that is applied. You can imagine that the image it's a sort of a rectangular image goes from left to right. Imagine that left is the color that is closer to the player, and right is the color that is in the distance. So in that way, you are basically able to paint color in the depth of the world, and that really gave Jane and Ollie the control they needed to make the Firewatch colors as beautiful as they are.
Cool.
Yeah, it really
It's
matches
orange
a lot of
near
Ollie's
me
original, like, poster
and yellow out in the
previous work for the
distance.
game.
Beautiful.
And that technique is used a
Atmospheric
lot in
haze.
like film. In film, they wouldn't even just use one texture. Sometimes they'll use like hundreds of these strips to layer out an entire scene. But can't do that in a video game because we got to render at a lot of frames per second on bad computers sometimes.
Yeah, and for that, like for the color correction specifically, we used the plugin
Who's that?
that was actually available in the Unity Asset Store, and it just worked right off the bat for us. It gave us sort of the real-time tweaking that we needed, and thanks to that, we saved some development time, which was really precious.
Yeah, that was the amplify color. If you're
That's
really
me.
want to make your own Firewatch, and in an area like this Aspen Grove, you can see all those effects coming together. You see, we have God rays coming from the sun. We have
Volumetric
depth of
lighting.
field. If you pick up an object to blur out the world, you can see all the different colors that Ollie's manipulating beyond just like what the sky and light would provide.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool.
Hi, this is Ollie again.
And this is Syndra. I worked as a character artist.
One of the most important things about this game, from our point of view, was to try and get the player to kind of inhabit this character Henry, and a big part of that was his character design. We wanted him to be a little different to the regular kind of character you might expect from this kind of game. He's a little older, a little more portly, and we wanted to make sure
Dad
that,
bod.
you know, when you look down, you can see your body, and you really I designed him from the point of view of like trying to make him feel like an older man in terms of the way he moves and looked. We used a lot of, I guess, reference for this, particularly comedian Louis C.K.
Louis!
is one of
He
them.
does look like
Yeah,
Louis a
I
little
think
bit.
so.
I had like a mood board that I made that's just essentially just like a collage of
A little schlubby.
and there was also a fair bit of like Wreck-It Ralph and like the heavy from
Wreck-It
T4.
Ralph. It's a burly dude.
Those are like these heavy, sort of slow-moving characters. So actually, when I was modeling, I would actually put like a camera in Henry's head so I could look down at his body, which is like I think most design characters for third-person games and mobile and stuff like that. I was not used to, designing anything from that perspective. The initial model I sent you guys was pretty much just a bunch of primitives mashed together, like really rough, sort of like early Dreamcast 3D kind of looking stuff, just to get like a feel for the, just proportions and to give James something to rig so he could just get something moving and kind of get a previous motions. Because
I love that they did
you don't
this.
need,
This is
like,
cool.
a fully formed, highly detailed 3D model to just do animation. So actually nailing that stuff early on was really important.
I like the backpack.
One of the biggest focuses was the hands, because those are the things that the player sees most, and they're the most sort of expressive, Henry. So we wanted to make sure that the shapes were really simple and bold and evocative in order to allow James, our animator, kind of give him the best material to work with.
I don't know if I agree with it. His hands are like
They're
sausagey.
practically the main character.
It's a really nice waterfall down here. Given those girls' love of skinny dipping, I bet they're nearby. There's some cloth out here. It looks like it was torn from something.
Strange.
I'll keep looking around. I see a campsite, and it looks like they've got a fire.
Is it them?
That seems like it. I swear, they must have dragged 4 cases of beer out here. I have entered the teen zone. These girls have a full case of beer left here. A full case. Well, I found some dangerous hunks.
What on earth are you?
It's another one of those magazines. Some of their clothes are all torn up. Their tent looks like it's been through the shredder. Looks like someone left a note.
Intriguing. Maybe you should read it.
Okay. Oh, they're gone, for sure.
Well, what's it say?
Threatening to call the police because they think I attacked them.
Oh my god, well, did you?
Hey, it's Sean.
And Chris. Hey, Sean.
So we are at the teens camp that has been destroyed, ransacked, rummaged, torn apart.
Yeah.
And I know you had some confusion over this, Chris.
I did. I didn't realize I had confusion. So I was the person who did all the gameplay, wiring, logic hookup stuff for this scene. And the entire time I was doing it, I, for some reason, was under the mistaken impression that it was a bear that destroyed this camp. I, for some reason, had convinced myself that, oh, Goodwin was sort of involved in framing Henry for teen stuff, but also, just separately and coincidentally, a bear just like blasted through here and tore up the tent. And I think I didn't realize until the game was almost done that that was not the case.
And I think that's one of the challenges is of making a game like this and where or telling a story that doesn't explicitly call out why everything is happening. I think me personally, and I think you agree with me, Chris, because we talk about movies and stories a lot, is I really find it obnoxious when a story goes out of its way to explain everything and handhold you through the plot of the story. Ultimately, you, the player, may have thought it doesn't really matter to you whether it was a Goodwin or a bear, because it's doing all the things on an emotional level that it needs to do as a scene, which is stress you out, realize there's danger, and create the fact that the teens feel like it was you. Like, you just know it's not you, so that's
Right.
what works here.
Like, or
as
you
written,
may have correctly intuited what happened, and that's also good.
yeah, Goodwin sets out to cause you distress and frame you for acts of violence such as this.
By inflaming the already existing tension between you and these teens.
Exactly right. Because he just wants you out of here. You entered that cave on your first day, and he knows what's in the bottom of it, and sort of
doesn't want you to.
Yeah, trips a trigger for him.
Yeah.
But yeah.
All right.
tuxedos as often as possible.
Oh, really?
You bet.
How cosmopolitan. I didn't realize Boulder was so chic.
It is the peak of high society.
Banter's really charming in this.
Yes. Now tell me about your face. I'm looking at you across the bar. What do I see?
All right. I think I will save it right there and end the stream. I was pleasantly surprised at how entertaining it was to play through this director's commentary. I think I'll do another session. It was nice to learn the behind-the-scenes stuff, learn a little bit about game developing. Some of it went way over my head. Others was really neat to see how it kind of came together, and things are a little patchy and spackled together behind the scenes, just like anything else. But yeah, until then, thanks for watching. Thanks for going through this with me. Appreciate it. And have a great Sunday.